The shuttle bay doors opened, and Mira Vance stepped onto the deck of Galactic Coalition Academy Station 7. She was small. She was alone. And she was very, very far from home. All around her, beings from across the galaxy moved with purpose. Some walked on two legs like her. Others floated through the air like living light. Some crawled on 6 limbs, and some rolled on wheels that were part of their bodies. The noise was a mix of clicks, whistles, hums, and sounds that human ears could not fully understand. Myra clutched her single bag and looked for signs pointing to the registration hall. She found one written in 12 languages and followed it down a corridor so wide that a truck could drive through it. The ceiling was 30 meters above her head. Everything in this place was built for creatures much larger than humans thought. She was Earth's only representative in the 47th integrated cohort. 32 recruits from 12 different species, all training to join the Coalition's military forces. It was a great honor, they had told her before she left. A historic moment for humanity. Their species had only made contact with the galaxy 23 years ago. To have a human selected for academy training so soon was remarkable. Myra did not feel remarkable. She felt small dot at the registration desk. A creature with 8 eyes and clicking mandibles looked down at her. The being was called Commander Vethay, and she would lead the 47th cohort through their training. Her body was like a spider made of dark metal, and she moved with a grace that seemed wrong for something so large. "Ensign Myra Vance," Commander Vethay said. Her voice came from a translator box, flat and without feeling. "Human, Sol System, Earth. Yes, Commander. You are smaller than expected. I am average height for a human female, Commander." The 8 eyes blinked in sequence. "Indeed. Your quarters are in Section 4. Training begins tomorrow at first bell. Do not be late." Section 4 was where the smallest recruits lived. Mira's room was simple: a bed, a desk, a storage unit, and a window that looked out at the stars. Her bunkmate was already there when she arrived. The creature was made of crystal. Living crystal that grew in the shape of a body with arms and legs and a head. When the being moved, it made soft chiming sounds like wind through glass. Its name was Shen, and it came from a world called Velith Prime. "You are the human," Shen said. The crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows on the walls. "I am. I have read about your species. You are very new to space travel. We are." Shen's body chimed gently. Mira would learn that this was how the Velith showed emotion. This particular sound meant something like polite curiosity. "What is your world like?" Myra sat on her bed. The mattress was too firm and the pillow smelled like chemicals, but it would do. "Earth is blue and green," she said. "It has water everywhere. Oceans and rivers and rain. The gravity is strong. The air is thick. It gets cold in some places and hot in others." "Gravity strong," Shen repeated. "How strong?" "About 9.8 meters per second squared." The crystal being went silent. Then it chimed again, a different sound this time. Surprise, maybe. Or concern. "That is very high," Shen said. "Most beings live on worlds with much less. The Kolvathi home moon is only 3.2. My world is 4.1. Myra shrugged. "It is all I have ever known." The next morning, the 47th cohort gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. Mira stood in the back, trying to see past beings that were 2 or 3 times her height. The Kolvathi were the largest, massive creatures with 4 arms and gray skin like stone. They came from a moon with low gravity, and their bodies had grown huge because of it. The smallest were the Etherians, who were not solid at all. They were beings made of light, glowing shapes that floated and flickered like flames. Commander Vethay addressed them all. "You are the finest your worlds have sent," she said. "Over the next cycle, you will be tested. You will be ranked. Only the highest among you will join the Vanguard Corps. The rest will serve the Coalition in other ways." She gestured with one long limb, and a massive display screen came to life behind her. It showed names and numbers, rankings. "This board will update every week," the commander said. "It shows your performance in all categories: physical aptitude, psionic potential, technological intuition, biochemical resilience. Hide from it if you wish, but you cannot hide from the truth of what you are." Myra found her name at the bottom. 32nd out of 30-2. In physical aptitude, she was last. The Kovathi could lift objects that weighed more than a ground transport vehicle. Mira could lift what any human could lift. To the galaxy, there was nothing. In psionic potential, she registered as 0. Humans could not read minds or move objects with thought. They could not feel the emotions of others or see into other dimensions. The Etherians found this so strange that they refused to speak to her. To them, she was barely alive. In technological intuition, she ranked low. The Dren could interface directly with machines using organs in their fingertips. The Serpentine Zithrak could solve complex calculations in seconds using their 3 brains. Mira had to use her hands and her eyes and her one brain. Like a primitive. In biochemical resilience, she was in the bottom 5. Her body could not survive in vacuum. She could not breathe underwater. Extreme cold would kill her in minutes. Extreme heat would kill her faster. A Kovathi named Thrax walked past her. He was nearly 3 meters tall, and each of his forearms was as thick as her waist. He looked down at her with 4 eyes that glowed like embers. "The small gravity dweller," he said, and the translator made his voice sound like rocks grinding together. "I am surprised your people sent you. Perhaps they do not understand what happens here." Myra said nothing. There was nothing to say. That night, after the lights went dim and Shen's body stopped glowing, Myra got out of bed. She found a clear space on the floor, and she began to exercise. 200 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 50 pull-ups on the doorframe, which was strong enough to hold her weight. Then she ran in place for 30 minutes until sweat soaked through her shirt. Shen woke and watched her with confusion. "Why do you do this?" the crystal being asked. "The rankings are set. You cannot change what you are." Myra finished her last push-up and stood. Her arms were shaking. Her breath came hard and fast. "On Earth," she said, "we have a saying. It is not about where you start. It is about where you finish." She went to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of kilometers away, was a pale blue dot. Home. "I am not finished yet," she said. Shen's body chimed softly. The sound meant nothing Mira could understand, but somehow it felt like the beginning of respect. The weeks passed slowly. Each day brought new tests, new failures, and new reasons for the cohort to look at Mira with pity or scorn. The Academy called them the Trials of Ascendancy. They were designed to find the best recruits from across the galaxy. They tested everything: mind, body, spirit, and abilities that humans did not even have words for. Myra failed most of them. The psionic resonance test came first. Recruits sat in a chamber filled with crystals that amplified mental energy. They were supposed to project their thoughts, to make the crystals glow with the power of their minds. The Etherians made the crystals shine like small suns. Even the Corvathi, who were not known for mental powers, managed to make them flicker. When Myra sat in the chamber, nothing happened. The crystals stayed dark. The machine that measured psionic energy showed a flat line. "Null reading," the testing officer said. He was a tall, thin being with silver skin and eyes that had no pupils. "The human registers no psionic potential whatsoever." "Is the machine broken?" Myra asked. "No, Ensign. You are simply empty." She ranked last in that test, 32nd out of 32. The biochemical adaptation chamber was next. Recruits entered a room that could change its environment. The air could become poison. The temperature could rise or fall. The pressure could increase until it crushed bones, or decrease until blood boiled. The goal was simple: survive as long as possible while the conditions changed. A Zithrak named Sleth lasted 47 minutes. Her 3 brains worked together to adjust her body chemistry, to shut down organs she did not need and protect the ones she did. A Dren named Kiath lasted 33 minutes. His species could seal their skin and enter a state like death, waiting out the danger. Myra lasted 11 minutes. The cold came first, and she shivered. Then the heat came, and she sweated. Then the air pressure dropped, and she felt her ears pop and her vision go dark. She slapped the emergency button and stumbled out of the chamber, gasping. 11 minutes and 14 seconds, the testing officer said. Rank, 29th. At least it was not last place. Small victories. The zero-gravity combat simulation was the worst. Recruits wore special suits and fought in a chamber where there was no up or down. They bounced off walls and ceiling and floor, attacking each other with practice weapons that stung but did not kill. Mira had trained in zero-gravity before. All humans who went to space did. But training on Earth's orbital stations was different from fighting the Korvathi. Thrax found her within seconds of the simulation starting. His forearms grabbed the walls and launched him toward her like a missile. She tried to dodge, tried to spin away, but he was too fast. One massive hand caught her leg. Another caught her arm. He swung her around like she weighed nothing and threw her at the wall. Her helmet cracked on impact. The simulation stopped. The human is defeated, the testing officer announced. Time elapsed, 41 seconds. Thrax floated past her as medical staff arrived to check her head. You should not be here, small one, he said. There was no anger in his voice. Just fact. This place is not for your kind. That night, Mira sat alone in the observation deck. She looked out at the stars and wondered if Thrax was right. Maybe she did not belong here. Maybe humanity had sent her too soon before they were ready. Maybe she should accept the support role and stop embarrassing her species. Commander Vethai found her there. The 8-eyed being moved quietly for something so large. Ensign Vance. Myra stood at attention. Commander, I have reviewed your performance in the trials thus far. The commander's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You are persistent. That is noted in your file. You train harder than any other recruit. You never miss a session. You never complain. Thank you, Commander. But persistence alone is not enough. Vethai moved closer, and Mira could see her own reflection in those 8 dark eyes. The numbers do not lie, Ensign. Your species has many fine qualities, but you are not suited for the vanguard. Perhaps a support role within the coalition would be better. Communications, supply management, medical assistance. There is no shame in such work. Myra was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. Permission to access the Academy's historical archives, Commander. Vethai's eyes blinked in sequence. For what purpose? Research, Commander. Into my species' history with the Coalition. The Commander considered this. Then she nodded. Granted. But do not let it distract from your training. The final trial approaches. The crucible waits for no one. Myra saluted and left. She walked to the archive section of the station, a vast library filled with data crystals and holographic displays. She searched through records of Earth's first contact with the galaxy, the diplomatic missions, the trade agreements, the cultural exchanges, and then she found it, the manifest from humanity's original delegation 23 years ago. A list of items they had brought as gifts and cultural artifacts. Most were still in Coalition storage, labeled as curiosities from a primitive world. One item caught her eye: Object 447, Iron Sledgehammer. Mass, 43 kilograms. Origin, North American continent, Earth. Previous owner, Elena Vance, steelworker. Status, unclaimed. Location, Storage Bay 12. Section G, Elena Vance. Myra's great-grandmother. She had died before Myra was born. But Myra's mother had told stories about her. Elena had been a builder. She had worked on bridges and buildings and towers. She had driven rivets into steel beams with a hammer that weighed more than most people could lift. She had been strong in a way that modern Earth, with its machines and computers. I had almost forgotten that Myra looked at the manifest for a long time. Then she smiled. The Crucible was coming. The final test that would decide everything. Recruits would be allowed to choose weapons from the Academy Armory. There would be plasma guns and energy blades and things that bent the laws of physics. But Mira knew what she would choose. She would choose the hammer that her great-grandmother had carried to the stars. The hammer that weighed 43 kilograms. The hammer that no alien could lift on. She would show them all what it meant to come from Earth. The armory of Galactic Coalition Academy Station 7 was the most impressive room Myra had ever seen. It stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction. Weapons from 1,000 worlds hung on walls and sat on pedestals and floated in suspension fields. Each one was a masterpiece of alien engineering. The Cohort gathered there on the day before the Crucible. This was a tradition as old as the Academy itself. Each recruit would choose a weapon that suited their abilities. The weapon would be theirs for the final test and, if they passed, for their service in the Vanguard Corps. Commander Vethai addressed them from a raised platform. "The Crucible is the ultimate test," she said. "It will take place on a simulated hostile world. Your objective is simple. Reach the evacuation beacon and activate it. Those who reach the beacon will qualify for the Vanguard. Those who do not will be assigned to other roles." She gestured at the vast armory around them. "Choose your weapons wisely. They may be the difference between success and failure, between glory and shame." The recruits spread out through the armory. Mira watched them go. Thrax went to the Kovathi section. He chose a plasma maul, a massive weapon that glowed with contained energy. When he swung it, the air cracked and sparked. It weighed nearly 100 kilograms, but his forearms lifted it easily. The Etherians drifted to weapons that suited beings of light. They chose thought lances, devices that focused their mental energy into beams that could cut through metal. The weapons had no physical form at all. They existed only when the Etherians willed them into being. The Dren chose harmonic blades. These were swords that vibrated at frequencies that could shatter molecular bonds. A single cut could split a boulder in half. The Zithrak chose weapons that worked with their 3 brains. Neural whips that responded to thought. Probability guns that calculated the perfect shot before it was fired. Everyone found something wonderful. Something powerful. Something designed for their species and their abilities. Myra walked past all of it. She walked through the PLASMA weapons section, past the energy blades, past the gravity manipulators and the quantum disruptors and the things she could not even name. She walked all the way to the back of the armory, where the lights were dim and dust-covered, everything dot. This was where the Coalition kept items of historical interest. Weapons that were too primitive for modern use, but too important to throw away. Mira searched through shelves and bins in storage, containers until she found what she was looking for. It sat alone on a shelf, covered in 23 years of dust. An iron sledgehammer with a wooden handle. Simple, crude, ugly. By the standards of galactic technology, the manifest tag was still attached. Object 447, Iron Sledgehammer. Mass, 43 kilograms. Previous owner, Elena Vance. Steelworker. Myra picked it up. It felt right in her hands. The weight was solid and honest. The handle was worn smooth by years of use. Her great-grandmother's hands had held this same wood, had swung this same iron, on Earth, under Earth's heavy sky. She carried it back to the main area of the armory. The cohort turned to look at her. Silence spread through the room like a wave. Thrax laughed first. It was a deep sound, like boulders rolling down a hill. "The primitive chooses a primitive tool," he said. "What will you do with that small one? Build a house?" The Etherians flickered with amusement. The Zithrak hissed what might have been laughter. Even the polite Dren looked away in embarrassment. Commander Vethe approached her. The 8 eyes studied the hammer with curiosity. "This is your choice, Ensign Vance?" "Yes, Commander. It is not a weapon by our standards. It is listed as a cultural artifact." "I am aware, Commander. You could choose anything in this armory. Plasma cannons, force shields, weapons that would multiply your strength 100-fold. Myra rested the hammer on her shoulder. The weight pressed down, comfortable and familiar. "This belonged to my great-grandmother," she said. Her voice was calm. She was a steelworker. She built bridges that stood for 100 years. She drove rivets into metal beams with this hammer. She did it in Earth's gravity, under Earth's heavy air, in heat and cold and rain. She looked at Thrax, at the Etherians, at all of them. "You think this is primitive," she said. "You think it is useless. But you do not understand what it means. You do not understand what Earth made us." Thrax stepped forward. He still held his plasma maul in one hand, but his other 3 hands were empty. "Let me hold it," he said. "Let me see this great weapon of your people." Mira held out the hammer. Thrax reached for it with one hand. His fingers closed around the handle. She let go. The hammer dropped. Thrax tried to hold it, but the weight pulled his arm down. The iron head hit the floor with a heavy clang. He grabbed it with a second hand. Then a third. Then all 4. The hammer did not move. Thrax strained. His gray skin darkened with effort. The muscles in his forearms stood out like cables. He grunted and pulled and pushed. But the hammer stayed on the floor like it was bolted there. This is not possible," he gasped. "I can lift a ground transport vehicle. I can tear metal with my bare hands." Myra bent down and picked up the hammer with one hand. She lifted it to her shoulder like it was nothing. "You grew up on a moon," she said. "Your gravity was 3.2 meters per second squared. Your muscles, your bones, your whole body grew in that light place. You became big because it was easy to become big." She shifted the hammer to her other hand. "I grew up on Earth, gravity of 9.8, 3 times what you know. Every day of my life, I carried my own weight against a force that wanted to push me into the ground. Every step I took, every breath I drew, was a fight against a planet that was trying to crush me." She looked at all of them. At the Kovathi, who could not lift her hammer. At the Etherians, who had no bodies at all. At the Zithrak with their 3 brains and the Dren with their harmonic blades. "You rated me bottom of the cohort," she said. "You thought I was weak because I am small. But you measured me by your standards. You did not ask what it means to come from a heavy world. You did not ask what Earth does to the things that live there." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. In the Crucible, you will find out. She walked away. The cohort watched her go in silence. Shen caught up to her in the corridor. The crystal being's body was chiming rapidly. A sound Myra had learned meant excitement. "You have surprised them," Shen said. "They do not know what to think." "Good. But the Crucible will still be difficult." "Raw strength is not everything," Myra nodded. "I know. That is why I have something else they do not expect. What is that? Mira looked at the hammer in her hand. She thought of her great-grandmother, working in the heat and cold, building things that lasted, never giving up. Stubbornness, she said. Earth made us stubborn. And tomorrow, I will show them what that means. The great assembly hall was silent as Commander Vethai stepped onto the raised platform. All 32 members of the 47th cohort stood in formation below her. Some stood tall and proud. Some could barely stand at all. 14 had reached the beacon. 18 had not. Myra stood near the back, as she always had. But something was different now. The beings around her no longer looked past her like she did not exist. They looked at her with something in their eyes that had not been there before. The crucible is complete, Commander Vethai announced. Her 8 eyes swept across the assembly. You have been tested. You have been measured. Some of you have exceeded all expectations. Some have fallen short. But all of you have learned something about yourselves. She gestured, and the great board came to life behind her. It showed names and numbers and rankings, just as it had on the first day. But the numbers were different now. The rankings have been recalculated, the commander said. The crucible has revealed truths that our earlier tests could not see. We have adjusted our measurements to account for factors we overlooked. Myra watched the board. The names shuffled. Numbers changed. Some recruits rose in the rankings. Some fell. Her name moved. It moved up. Past the 20 mark. Past 15. Past 10. Past 5. It stopped at the top. Rank. First. A murmur went through the hall. Mira stared at the board, not quite believing what she was seeing. She was ranked first. Out of 32. Her, the small human from the primitive heavy world. Ensign Myra Vance, Commander Vethai said. Approach the platform. Mira walked forward. Her legs still hurt from the crucible. Her arms still ached. But she walked with her back straight and her head high. She climbed the steps to the platform and stood before the commander. The evaluation committee has reviewed your performance, Vethai said. Your physical aptitude has been recalculated using a high-gravity baseline. When adjusted for your planet's conditions, your strength places you in the top 3 of the cohort. She paused, and her mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. Your leadership under pressure has been rated as exceptional. You could have left your fellow recruits behind. You did not. You carried the wounded. You freed the trapped. You sacrificed your own comfort and safety to help others reach the beacon. She turned to face the assembly. 9 recruits reached the beacon only because Ensign Vance made it possible. 4 of those recruits have stated in their reports that they would have died without her intervention. Myra looked down at the cohort. She saw Thrax standing in the middle of the formation. The big Kovathi nodded at her. It was a small movement, but it meant everything. She saw Shen, standing carefully on a repaired leg. The crystal being chimed softly, and Myra knew the sound now. It was gratitude. The evaluation committee has also reviewed the weapon you selected for the crucible, Commander Vethai continued. Object 447, an iron sledgehammer from Earth. Mass, 43 kilograms. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared. It showed the hammer, rotating slowly. This object has been reclassified. It is no longer listed as a cultural curiosity. It is now designated a Tier 1 Vanguard weapon. Another murmur went through the hall. Tier 1 was the highest classification. It meant the weapon was approved for elite combat operations. It meant it was considered equal to plasma mauls and harmonic blades and thought lances. Additional notes have been added to the classification, the commander said. The hammer cannot be lifted by any known species outside Class G gravitational tolerance. Access is restricted to beings from high-gravity worlds. She looked at Mira. In other words, Ensign, this weapon is yours. No one else in the Coalition can use it. Myra did not know what to say, so she said the only thing that came to mind. Thank you, Commander. Vetha's eight eyes blinked in sequence. There was something in them that Mira had not seen before. Curiosity, maybe. Or wonder. We have studied many species over the millennia, the commander said. We thought we understood what strength meant. We thought we understood the limits of biology. But your species is different. You come from a world that should crush you. And instead of being crushed, you grew stronger. She stepped closer to Myra. The Coalition has made a mistake, she said quietly, so only Myra could hear. We underestimated humanity. We will not make that mistake again. The ceremony ended. The cohort dispersed. But Mira stayed on the platform for a moment, looking out at the stars through the great windows of the assembly hall. Thrax approached her. The big Karvadi climbed the platform steps and stood beside her. He was quiet for a long time. I tried to lift your hammer again, he finally said. After the crucible, while you were resting, and I could not move it. Not even with all four arms. Not even with my strongest effort. He looked at her with his four ember-colored eyes. I have carried boulders, he said. I have torn metal with my bare hands. I am the strongest of my people. But your hammer might as well be bolted to the floor. Myra smiled. It is not about the hammer. Then what is it about? She thought about how to explain it. How to make him understand what Earth had done to her people. What billions of years of heavy gravity had built into their bones and muscles and blood. My great-grandmother used that hammer every day for 30 years, she said. She drove rivets into steel beams. She built bridges that carried millions of people. She did it in heat and cold, in rain and snow, with the full weight of Earth pressing down on her shoulders. She looked out at the stars. Earth does not make us strong, she said. It makes us stubborn. It makes us too heavy for this galaxy to push around. Thrax was silent for a moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your people are very strange, he said. Yes, Myra agreed. We are. Shen joined them on the platform. The crystal being moved carefully, still healing from the cracks the crucible had caused. What will you do now? Shen asked. You are ranked first. You will join the vanguard. You will have your choice of assignments. Myra considered the question. She could go anywhere now. The best ships, the most important missions, the highest honors. They were all open to her, but that was not what she wanted. I want to go home, she said. Just for a little while. I want to stand on Earth again. I want to feel the gravity. I want to remember where I come from. She looked at the hammer in her hand. Her great-grandmother's hammer. The artifact from the heavy world. Then I will come back, she said. And I will show the galaxy what else humanity can do. Shen chimed softly. Thrax nodded Dot, and somewhere far away, across the vast emptiness of space, a pale blue dot circled a yellow star. Earth, the heavy world. The place that had made Myra Vance into something the galaxy had never seen before. The place that had made all of humanity into something extraordinary. Myra smiled and raised the hammer to her shoulder. We are going to do just fine out here, she said Dot, and she meant it. The simulation chamber was the largest room on Station 7. It could create any environment. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, toxic swamps, or airless moons. For the Crucible, it became Keth 7, a volcanic world on the edge of Coalition space. Mira materialized on a ridge of black rock. Heat hit her like a wall. The air smelled of sulfur and ash. In the distance, volcanoes glowed red against a dark sky. The ground shook with tremors that never stopped. Her suit's display showed a countdown, 6 hours until simulated core breach. At the bottom of the screen was a marker showing the location of the evacuation beacon. It was 12 kilometers away, across some of the most dangerous terrain the simulation could create. She started walking. The hammer rested on her shoulder dot around her. Other recruits appeared in flashes of light. The cohort had been scattered across the simulation, each starting in a different location. They would have to find their own paths to the beacon. Some would help each other. Some would fight. Some would fail. Mira moved quickly. The heat was bad, but she had trained in heat before. Earth had deserts and jungles and places where the temperature climbed to 50 degrees. Her body knew how to sweat, how to keep cool, how to keep moving when everything in her wanted to stop. She jumped over a crack in the ground where lava glowed like liquid fire. She climbed a cliff of sharp volcanic rock that cut her gloves, but not her hands. She ran across a field of ash that tried to suck her feet down with every step. The Etherians were the first to fail. She saw them in the distance, their light forms flickering and fading. The planet's magnetic field was too strong. It disrupted their bodies, pulled them apart, scattered them like smoke in wind. They vanished one by one, eliminated from the simulation. The Zithrak went next. Their cold blood could not handle the heat. They slowed down, stopped moving, curled into balls on the hot ground. The simulation marked them as casualties and removed them. Even the Korvathi struggled. Mira saw Thrax in the distance, his 4 arms pulling him up a slope. But he was slowing. His body, built for low gravity, was not made for this kind of effort in this kind of heat. She watched him stumble, fall, get up again, fall again. Myra kept walking. After 2 hours, she found the crystal being was trapped under a collapsed thermal vent. Hot gases had exploded from the ground, throwing rocks everywhere. One of those rocks had pinned Shen's leg. The crystal was cracking from the heat, lines of fractures spreading through the beautiful body like spiderwebs. "Leave me," Shen chimed. The sound was weak, broken. "You must reach the beacon. Your ranking depends on it." Myra did not answer with words. She swung her hammer. The iron head hit the rock. The rock shattered like glass. She swung again, breaking away the pieces that held Shen down. Then she bent and pulled the crystal being free. "Can you walk?" I do not know. Then I will carry you." She put Shen over her shoulder. The crystal being was heavy, maybe 30 kilograms. But that was nothing the muscles built on Earth. She started walking again. After another hour, she found THRX. The big Korvathi was trapped behind a sealed blast door. Something had gone wrong with the simulation, or maybe it was designed this way. The door had closed and locked, and there was no way around it. Thrax and 9 other recruits were stuck on the wrong side. "This door will not move," Thrax said when he saw her. His 4 eyes were dull with exhaustion. "We have tried everything. All of us together could not open it." Myra looked at the door. It was thick metal, designed to survive volcanic eruptions and pressure waves. The kind of door that could stop a tank. She set Shen down gently against a rock. "Move back," she said to Thrax. "You cannot be serious. If 10 of us could not, move back." Thrax moved back. So did the other recruits. They watched the small human approach the door with her primitive hammer. Some of them laughed. Some of them shook their heads in pity. Mira planted her feet. She thought of her great-grandmother, standing on a steel beam 100 meters above the ground, driving rivets into metal with this same hammer, working in rain and wind and heat because the bridge had to be built, because someone had to do it, because giving up was not in her blood. She swung. The hammer hit the door like a bomb. The metal dented. The sound was like thunder. She swung again. The dent became a crack. Again. The crack became a hole. Again. 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 Her arms burned. Her shoulders screamed. Sweat poured down her face and her back and her legs. But she did not stop. She could not stop. Earth had not made her to stop. The door gave way. Metal tore. Hinges broke. The whole thing collapsed inward like paper. Myra stood in the opening, breathing hard, her hammer dripping with condensation from the heat. On the other side, Thrax stared at her with all four eyes wide. That is impossible, he said. Myra smiled. It hurt to smile. Everything hurt. But she smiled anyway. That is 43 kilograms, she said, moved by muscles that grew up fighting 9.8 meters per second squared. Every day. Every hour. Every minute of my life. She pointed through the opening. The beacon is that way. 4 more kilometers. Can you walk? Thrax nodded slowly. He looked different now. Smaller, somehow. Less sure of himself. I can walk. Then walk. I will not carry you. She picked up Shen again and started moving. Behind her, Thrax and the other recruits followed. They said nothing. There was nothing to say. The last 4 kilometers were the worst. The ground shook more violently. Lava flows blocked their path and they had to find ways around. Twice, Myra had to use her hammer to break through obstacles that stopped the others, but they made it. All of them. The beacon was on top of a hill of black stone. Myra climbed it first. She set Shen down near the activation panel. Then she reached out and pressed the button. The simulation froze. The volcanoes stopped erupting. The ground stopped shaking. A voice came from everywhere at once. Beacon activated. Simulation complete. Survivors, 14. Myra sat down on the hot rock. She was so tired she could barely move. Her arms felt like they were made of lead. Her legs trembled. Her head pounded, but she had made it. And she had not come alone. She looked at Thrax, who sat nearby, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. She looked at Shen, whose crystal body was cracked but still glowing. She looked at the others, the 9 recruits she had freed from behind the door. They were all looking at her. How? Thrax asked. His voice was quiet, almost humble. How are you so strong? You are small. Your planet is primitive. You have no psionic powers, no special organs, no technological advantages. How? Myra was too tired to give a long answer. So she gave a short one. Gravity, she said. Earth tried to crush us. Every generation. Every lifetime. And we refused to be crushed. She closed her eyes and let her head fall back against the stone. We are stubborn, she said. That is all. We are the most stubborn thing in the galaxy. Around her, the survivors said nothing. But for the first time since she had arrived at the academy, no one was looking at her with pity. No one was looking at her with scorn. They were looking at her with something else: respect.